Yo, what's going on, your boy Ghost here, and today I'm bringing you guys another comparison video between the M60 and XM4. And again, man, we're following the topic of doing comparisons on weapons that don't really get used very often and don't really have like that much attention. And that gun this time around is the M60. And the M60 kind of has like a bad track record. If you guys remember a few seasons ago, and even now, when people got it off the ground, people were always like, bro, I gotta use this gun off the ground. This gun is horrible. And you know, for a time, yeah, the gun was bad, but back when the integration first happened, I could have sworn this gun was like really good. And even now, like on paper, it should be really good, but it definitely has its downsides to it. And today we're gonna explore on if this weapon is good and if it's capable of just competing with the top ARs. But before we do get into this, I want to say if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. We're on to 2,000. We're like about 160, maybe a little bit less away. And also, if you guys can do me a favor or following me over at my Twitch channel at alwaysgoes_. We are 39 followers away from 250, which is the goal right now. And man, with that being said though, let's get into this comparison. And there I have the recoil pattern for the MG, and to be honest, man, this is kind of like very misleading because by this recoil pattern, it kind of feels like this gun would have no recoil because the fire rate isn't that fast and it doesn't develop recoil very quickly at all. And in theory, it should be kind of easy to control and be usable at range. But I don't know if it was because of my class setup. Maybe it was the barrel that I was using, or maybe because I had a stock on it. This gun at range, bro, like, it was very difficult to hit a lot of shots consistently. And again, this gun does actually have a lot of damage, but it just doesn't matter because hitting shots at long range doesn't even, it doesn't make this gun like be able to showcase its full potential. And in reality, this gun to me really feels like a close to medium range weapon. And although it's an LMG, it doesn't feel like a LMG in terms of range. And in comparison to like XM4, for example, the range game is just definitely not in the favor of the MG, which is just very tough because like, I don't know, man, like this MG, again, on paper, just it gives me hope for how good this gun could be, but like when I use it, the more I use it, it does definitely feel lackluster. And to be honest, the fun thing is, like, the reason why I wanted to make this comparison was because I was playing Rebirth, right, like yesterday, and I literally ran up on somebody and they turned around, they didn't even aim in, and they mapped me with an MG. I died like in 3-4 bullets, but I was mind blown. And I looked at the kill cam, and the way I died was just crazy. And if I had the clip, I would have put it in this video. But that just kind of like inspired me. So I was like, yo, this gun low-key hits, right? And the more I used it, and it's a very inconsistent weapon. Like, at times, it does have the potential to completely just melt somebody and break armor and just feel like a complete monster of a weapon. But then other times, it just feels like that really bad weapon that you picked up off the ground a few seasons ago and you just didn't ever want to have in your hands. But not everything is negative about the MG. For starters, we have the 100 rounds. That's pretty good. The damage, again, is pretty solid. And if you catch someone in the open, or if you're able to mount and gun people off head glitches, you're gonna be able to do it because this gun's damage is very, very solid. But obviously, man, like, in my opinion, it's a lot more negatives to positives in this gun, and it kind of sucks though because I really did have hope for this gun. And again, back when I used it a long time ago in the integration, the gun didn't feel that bad. If you guys go back like 6, 7, 8 months ago where I posted videos of MG, at that time, I didn't feel that bad. But I don't know, man, now I kind of like opened my eyes to it, and in comparison to the meta of the ARs, and because, like, you know, we have the Stoner, the RPG, like those weapons have the ability to compete with the top ARs at the moment. Even PKMs, so like those LMGs can do it. But this LMG, for just some reason, it's just literally the added recoil, that ability to not control it properly, and just it feeling very, very hard to control at range. Like, I think that's the one thing that kills this gun. And if they fix that, this gun could be amazing. Like, it is slow, and it is this and that. Like, it's slow, reload slow. Like, it's just a true LMG. But if they just could make it more accurate, or make it a little bit easier to control and not lose control over a long distance, like, this weapon could be good. But again, in comparison to an XM4, it doesn't really stand a chance. And I guess that kind of just answers the question on whether or not this gun is good. Well, it's good, but it's not good to the point where it's able to compete with the top metas. But anyways, I do want to go over the stats so you guys can kind of see where I'm coming from in the whole like it being somewhat good, because it's not completely terrible. Don't get me wrong, it's not completely terrible, but it just does have a lot of lackluster qualities. But anyways, man, let's get into the XM4 and stats. And here we have the recoil pattern for the XM4, and this kind of confuses me because this gun, just by this, has more recoil than the M60. Yet, it's so much easier to control. It's a lot more stable, and it's just a better weapon for range overall, which is confusing because it has way more recoil, or at least based off that recoil pattern. And I just realized something, like a little side note. If I've been calling the M60 the MG the whole time, I apologize. Obviously, it's the M60. Hope you guys understood what I meant. Hope you guys didn't get confused by it. But anyways, man, moving over to the first stat. We have the fire rate, and the XM4 has a 721 fire rate, or RPM, and then the MG has a 515 RPM, which is right now, I'm pretty sure, the slowest fire rate that I've ever covered in just my history of doing comparisons, and my history of just actually providing stats for you guys. And basically, that in itself, that's self-explanatory. That's a huge disadvantage, especially in comparison to an XM4. And the gun is very slow. But normally when a gun has a lower fire rate, they have low recoil and they have high damage. But this time around, the M60 has a lot of recoil, or just unstable accuracy. I don't even know how to say it, because, like, bro, again, I don't think it's necessarily designed. Maybe it's the class setup, but the gun just has a weird amount of recoil, which it shouldn't have. Like, it shouldn't have the amount of recoil and the amount of instability that it has. And I think it's honestly a bug. And if they fix it or they make some sort of buff, the gun could be amazing. Because moving over to the damage, for starters, we're going to do with the XM4. For 0 to 22 meters, we have 44 damage to the head, 45 to the neck, and then 30 to the chest, stomach, and extremities and limbs. And then for the MG, we have a 59 damage to the head, 40 to the neck, 40 to the chest, and then 37 to the stomach and extremities. So aside from the neck damage, which again the XM4 has a very serious neck damage, the MG is pretty much it's definitely way more powerful than the XM4 in every aspect. Yet, to be honest, it doesn't really feel like that. I feel like it's probably because of the fire rate. But when I start shooting somebody, I usually with the M60, I leave them one shot and then they get around a corner and then I can't do anything about it. Like there's been so many instances where I've left people literally one shot with the M60, but I just wasn't able to get that last bullet off. And I'm not gonna really necessarily blame the recoil, because it's not the recoil, it's the fire rate. The fire rate is a little bit too low in my opinion. I think it should be at least like 550, 560, 575 maybe. I think 515 is definitely way too slow. And added on to the fact that it has way too much recoil, like I think the stats and just the way this gun doesn't match up, aside from the damage. Like the damage, if they're gonna have low fire rate, it makes sense, but it has a little bit too much instability and recoil for it to be justified for it to have 515 RPM. It just shouldn't be a thing. But then moving on over to the longer range, which to be honest isn't really applicable to this M60 because that long range is pretty much non-existent. But anyways, for 22 meters in the book to the XM4, we have 40 damage to the head and neck, and then 27 to the chest, stomach, and extremities. So the long range damage for the XM4 is literally not even surpassing the close range damage for the M60. So then for 42 meters and above for the M60, we have 51 damage to the head, 35 to the neck, chest, and then 32 to the stomach and extremities. And this is, I guess, where the damage drop off comes off. Actually, no, it's just the neck. The neck damage, again, obviously way lower than the XM4, but the chest, stomach, extremities, and head, still somewhat more, definitely more powerful. But again, man, like, it's just the M60, just for some reason, on paper, this gun is literally really powerful. And I think it might even be more powerful than a Stoner or even PKM. I'm not entirely sure about that. I'm not entirely sure if that's accurate. So I apologize if that's actually misinformation, but I think it is, if I remember correctly. So on paper, it has the tools to succeed. But then in the game, like, I honestly think this gun is really, really bugged. Like, I think there should be no way that the gun is in the state that it's in right now, given what the stats are. Like, this gun shouldn't be this bad. Like, out of all the LMGs that I've used, I think this is by far the worst one that I've used. And it kind of sucks because, again, I had hope for it, and I always thought it wasn't as bad as we made it out to, because off the ground, like, you know, yeah, off the beginning, no attachments, it having all the recoil, like, yeah, the gun was bad. But when you put on the attachment, I just figured, you know, it's not going to be that bad. It's going to be somewhat usable. But in conclusion, like I mentioned in the beginning of my video, is this gun good or not? And it's definitely not the best, and I can see why this gun doesn't get the attention that all other guns get, or all the other LMGs get. So in this case, unlike the P90, this gun isn't necessarily a weapon I would recommend, because it's not necessarily underrated, because it definitely, the reasons why it doesn't get used are definitely valid. But anyways, man, let me know what you guys think about the M60. I already have an idea what you guys are going to say. But yeah, man, with that being said, though, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys later, and I'm out. Peace.